Welcome back to the On Pace podcast. I'm your host right here at the mic, James Fuller, and I am so thankful to have you tuned in to this episode. And this is an exciting one. I've got a guest that I am so excited to share with you today. And I know we're going to have a lot of great content, a lot of great discussion. And so I'll just tease that for the moment, but stay tuned. You're going to have an incredible time listening to today's episode. Just want to welcome you and thank you once again for tuning in. We've had a lot of people that have tuned into the On Pace podcast for every episode. We're listened to around the world, and it's just humbling to see how far the reach of the On Pace podcast is, this small podcast, and how far it's able to reach. So I want to thank you for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, you can subscribe on all your major podcast platforms. So Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, you name it. So follow us wherever you want to listen to us. And one thing I would encourage you to do is leave a rating and a review. And then the best way that you can help us grow the podcast is to share the podcast. So if you find an episode that really hits home with you, one that you really like, there's a guest that you really like. Obviously today's I'm going to say is going to be one of those that should definitely get a lot of love. But if you'll share those episodes, that just helps us grow the podcast as well. And I would really appreciate that. So today's episode is episode 30. The big 3-0, like we're turning 30 over here, but the episode 30. And if you did get a chance to listen to the last episode, it's been a minute, but the last episode was with my buddy Corey Burdett, and we talked about kind of AI and how it's shaping the future. So if you have not listened to that, I encourage you to go back and listen to that and several of the other episodes of the On Pace podcast. But today's episode is number 30. And we are excited to kick it off. One last thing I'll say before we go into the guest segment is if you'd like to reach out to us, there's many ways that you can do that. So you can follow us on all the social media platforms. So on Facebook, we are the On Pace Podcast. On Instagram, it's on.pace. And then you can follow me as well, James Fuller. And you can reach out to me on any of those through DMs. If you are someone that doesn't have social media, feel free to reach out the old-fashioned way we call email today. You can reach out to us at theonpacepodcast@icloud.com, and then you can reach out to me directly, and that's at james@fullerrunsmedia.com. So those are the different ways that you can reach out to me. Would love to hear from you if you've got an idea about a guest or someone that you'd like to listen to on the podcast, or maybe a topic idea you'd like me to cover. Would absolutely love to hear from you. So reach out, let us know that you're listening, because these microphones don't talk back. So without further ado, I want to move in to my favorite part of any podcast episode, because no one wants to just listen to the same person talk for 30 minutes to an hour, and that is the guest section. And today's guest, by day, he is the Bruce Wayne of teaching. So he's entering his 18th year teaching 7th grade mathematics at West Middle School. Shout out Bobcats. I'm a Bobcat. And by night, however, he is far and widely known for his harrowing efforts to be the Batman of weather awareness. And so if you follow on social media, I'm sure you've seen his CK spotlight shining in the overcast sky, but he is the Batman of weather. And he is a Lynchburg native, graduated from Moore County back in 2003. And being a self-proclaimed weather junkie, he looks to do a little good in the communities that he loves, and I would argue that he's doing a lot of good in the communities that he loves. What started as covering live weather events to help rural communities get the attention that they deserve, that has grown into a massive following on Facebook with nearly 3,000 followers. I think he just launched a YouTube channel as well, which I'm excited about because now I can watch on TV. And it is absolutely my pleasure to welcome today's guest, Mr. Christopher or Chris King. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome, James. I appreciate you having me, and I'm honored to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, tell you what, I want to kick it over to you. You tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of whatever you want to hit, kind of your 10,000-foot introduction. If you're meeting somebody for the first time, tell a little bit about yourself, maybe your family, those kind of things, and then we'll dive into the rest of the podcast.
Well, absolutely. I'm Christopher King. Like you said, my full-time job is an educator. Like I said, I've spent 18 years now. Just seems like it was yesterday. Teaching in the middle school. I love middle school. People think I'm crazy for wanting to teach middle school, but I love middle school. I love math. I just think there is a lot of math, no matter where you go in the world. It's everywhere if you go looking for it. And so I've done a pretty good career there. I've done things like have award-winning math teams that have competed all across Middle Tennessee. And so that's kind of my day job. But I think my most favorite thing I get called out of all the things is dad. And so I've got two kids. Elliot is 9 and Eleanor is 15 months. So we got a big span between them. So they're definitely keeping me young at heart. I'm married to the wonderful Karen King. She was my high school sweetheart. And so we've spent almost 20 years together. If you take all the time we've dated together. And so that's a little bit about me personally. Also, I love music. I've been playing guitar for 25 years. And so that's a little bit on the background that people may not know about. But yeah, I've been playing. I play locally at sCrossChurch in Tullahoma. I'm a big Dave Matthews Band fan. That's kind of where I got my whole start, was listening to him when I was like 9 years old. And I was like, I want to play like that, because that doesn't sound like anything else that's on the radio at the time in the 90s. And then of course my weather background, where I guess it's a passion. If I wouldn't, I tell a lot of people a lot, if I wasn't going to be a teacher, I'd definitely be a meteorologist. And so I think it's important, no matter what you do, whatever your career is, that you have hobbies and things to get involved in. And I try to make sure that whatever hobbies that I'm involved in gives back in some way. Because I think that's, if you've got gifts and talents, that's kind of your responsibility in a way to give those back and multiply that. So that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome, dude. You said so many good things just right there in that, 2 minutes. But a couple of things I want to hit on before we move on is, you mentioned 20 years together with you and Karen. That's awesome. Mandy and I actually we'll be celebrating our 20-year anniversary this year, and we both turned 40 this year. So this is kind of a big celebratory year. So that's awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah, we started dating like 2001. I just remember we were at church and she's a redhead, and I was like, she's pretty good looking. And I was like, I've got to date her. And then it turned into a long thing. We waited until we were both out of college to get married. And so we've been married 16 years. So, but if you take all the other time together, I mean, we feel like we've been married forever. So, but yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
It's one of those things that it seems like yesterday and then seems like it's been an eternity. I totally understand.
Exactly.
Mandy and I were kind of similar. We both worked at the mall together, and I worked at Woodard's, which was a jewelry store.
Yeah.
And she worked at Bath and Body Works. It was very similar. She wandered down from Bath and Body Works, and I saw her, and then the rest is history. So
that's it. I know what you're talking about, brother.
You just get smitten, man. So that's awesome. And Dave Matthews, man, I mean, come on. You couldn't pick a better musical artist group to have a favorite. I mean, what do you have a favorite song of theirs? Because
golly,
good ones.
I've got so many. I mean, if I could show you back behind me, there's a poster from the last time they were in Nashville. I would say if my most favorite song probably out of them to play personally is So Much to Say. I love just playing that song. It's a fun song. But if I had to pick like a favorite song, probably like The Dreaming Tree. I honest to goodness though, being a Dave Matthews fan, I would tell anybody, listen to Before These Crowded Streets, and you listen to it from start to finish. People don't do that anymore with music, because everything is so singles based, and they're throwing EPs out, and there's really no cohesiveness to the art anymore. But the way that Dave was able to do a bunch of outros and intros to songs that you wouldn't necessarily hear in a lot of his live stuff. But and it's kind of a darker album too. It was kind of one of the first 3 albums kind of had that true Dave sound before he changed, but kind of changed and with the times. So, but anyways, that's I would say probably Dreaming Tree.
Musically and lyrically, his music is definitely unmatched. Great artist. So good selection there. So we're gonna, just to give everybody kind of a forecast of the podcast, I'm gonna throw as many of those weather analogies in as that I can.
Go for it.
So a forecast of the podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about your teacher life that you mentioned. And then I do want to touch on faith. You mentioned King's Cross and your service there. I want to talk a little bit about that. And we've got some mutual friends I'm sure we'll give a shout out to. And then the last and certainly not least, I want to spend a good bit of time on the weather, because that is something that obviously piqued my interest when you started doing that. And then I've started following as of recently, as it's just kind of continued to blow up. And, Mandy will tell you, I'm whenever you've done these forecasts and in the middle of the storm kind of lives, I'll be laying in bed, my phone pressed right up against my nose and listening to you, and and you're talking about who needs to be aware and all this stuff like that, and here I am laying in bed like cuddled behind the phone trying to figure out if it's going to come close to us or not. So we'll talk
Exactly.
about
Yeah.
weather as well. So.
Sure.
And then last but not least, one of the ways that I like to end podcasts are these rapid fire questions. So we'll hit just a series of a bunch of questions, both kind of weather focused, and I've got a few teacher focused ones we'll throw in there.
Okay.
They're just quick hit questions. So we'll get started with that. But let's jump in the teacher for a few minutes, because
Sure.
I think that is definitely something. You mentioned you've been doing this for 18 years. So you had to have, with it being a 2003 graduate, you had to have pretty much started right out of the gate when you got out of school doing that.
Yes and no. I'll tell you honestly, when I graduated Moore County, I was a computer science major, and I was at Tennessee Tech, and I just put all my eggs in one basket, and I got up there to Cookeville, being a Lynchburg guy, a fish out of water. None of my 56 graduating classmates went with me, and so I was up there, and I was coding, and I was good at it, but I wasn't happy. And I had to take a really big look at myself going, okay, is this something that you foresee yourself doing for the next however many years? People change jobs a lot anymore, but back in the day, it was like, okay, that's going to be your job for 30, 40 years and you're going to retire. Right. And I looked at that and said, I like this, but I don't love this. And so I went through, I wouldn't say a dark phase, but just a point in my life where I was like, I really don't know what I need to do in my life. I wish if this me could go back and talk to that me, it would be this, that there's no right or wrong decision here. Sometimes the decisions are good or better, And so I thought, oh Lord, if I make this one decision wrong, it's going to be the end of my life. Well, come find out, I'm still dating. Well, my girlfriend was my wife now, Karen, and both of her parents are lifelong educators, both of them over 40 years of experience in the classroom. And they're like, well, have you thought about teaching? And I'm like, no, not really. I mean, game for anything. I was looking at psychology, to be quite honest with you,
There you go.
and had an opportunity to work with some kids, and just a light bulb went off. And it was a day where I was still working at Save a Lot at a grocery store, and just trying to make ends meet while I'm at school. And I heard I will tell everybody to the day I die, I heard the voice of God, and he said, teach. That's the only time I've ever heard it audibly.
That's cool.
And I said, okay, then that's what I've got to do. And I've spent, like I said, 18 years doing it. So that's a little bit about that whole background. I didn't start at West Middle School. Back in the day, Telehoma, the way it was, you could only get in if it was interims. And so I took an interim into 5th grade, and I taught at Bel Air. And I got to the end of the year and found out that the lady that was gone for the year had a baby, and she decided to come back. It was 2008, the recession, all the great stuff, right?
Us
And
bankers know it well.
yeah, exactly, right. And so I talked to Waylon Long, which was the kind of HR person at the time, and he says, well, Christopher, you've got two options. You can go to middle school, or you can find another job somewhere else. And I was like, I'll take middle school,
Take middle
please.
school, yeah.
And exactly. And I didn't know at the time. And just working with some of the great teachers that I was able to work with. I taught at East for 2 years and then went over to West. And so just learning how to build relationships with students, because that's huge.
Yeah,
And being authentic with students, because, middle school students, they can spot bull a mile away.
yep. They'll see
And
right through it.
exactly. And all they want is really somebody that's going to be real with them, and somebody that's just going to treat them with love and respect. And I have kind of always followed that. I know it's the golden rule and it sounds so cliche, but if you treat kids with kindness, most every kid is going to treat you back with kindness. And
Agreed.
that's been the experience of my career. And so just sifting through all of that, and finally getting in kind of a rhythm, teaching math. My father-in-law was a math teacher at Tullahoma High School for a long time. And he kind of helped bring me under his wing before he passed away, and just kind of say, this is how you do it. And kind of old school in my approach. But sometimes I feel like with everything and the technology that's changing, what kids want is old school direct kind of teaching,
Yeah.
and that's what I kind of give them, the kids that I get the honor to teach. So
That's cool. And teaching has changed so much since even we were in school. So I was an '04 graduate, so I was just a year behind you. But it's funny to see. You're talking about old school teaching, but I would say it's almost been like this circle
it
because
is.
as things have. Technology has grown. Social media obviously changed a lot of the world and what kids the attention and the how long they can stay focused and all these different things have changed. I'm sure in your world how teaching and how it's evolved. But then you're talking about almost like it's coming back full circle to they just want to be taught kind of that old school way.
Well, yeah, I think what you'll see in education is that the pendulum will swing and they'll rebrand it, but it's the same old thing that it always has been. Like, for
Oh yeah.
instance, when I first got into the profession, they talked about differentiated instruction. Now they call it personalized instruction. It's the same thing. And what kids want is, yeah, old school, but people that are passionate about what they do. I seriously, I say this to my kids all the time. This is a job that I don't have to do. I get to do this
Yeah,
job.
exactly.
And so when you have that mindset and you teach it with passion, I think the kids would they see that. They see the enthusiasm. And when I'll never forget, I did have a kid when I was teaching sixth grade. She was like, "Are you sure you don't want to be a preacher?" And I said, "Well, honey, I teach out of the book of Numbers every day."
There you go. That's
And she
good.
went, "Oh, good one, Mr. King." I said, "Yeah, I know."
That's
So
good. Throw a dad joke in there every now and then. So
yeah, well, that's dad jokes are free. I have that on my door when you walk into my classroom. Dad jokes are free all the time.
oh, that's great. I didn't know that, but that's very fitting. So that's awesome. I the numbers thing. I think my mom has got something like it because my mom's a math teacher.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
what was funny is she had come by the bank today, and she's spending the night with us tonight, so she can watch Jack during the summer tomorrow. And knowing that she's a math teacher and she's been doing it for almost about the same amount of time, I think 18 or 19 years as you have, I was like, so what are some questions you would ask a math teacher? And so she gave me a few different things, but I'm sure she's got some of those shirts as well that I teach numbers or there's a funny one I
Math
can't
is the
remember.
only subject that counts.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, she's got all these ones, and I can't remember them
Yeah.
all right off the top of my head, but they are good. So, so you mentioned you started at Bel Air and then
Mhm.
went to East, I believe. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I
Government.
did. I did.
So
Mhm.
what grades have you taught besides seventh grade?
I've taught seventh grade, eighth grade, sixth grade. I've taught fifth through eighth. And I've
Okay.
taught math, well, fifth grade at math as well, but it was kind of self-contained at the time. But yeah, every grade five through eight with math, and so
So have
I've
you
gone.
found the sweet spot, or which one is your?
Well, you know, I think right now where I'm at, I think is a sweet spot. I teach two, basically we call them honors classes.
Yeah.
And so that class really isn't seventh grade, it's like 7, 8. And so we get basically the sixth grade teacher teaches halfway through the seventh grade material. I pick up the other half and then go all the way through the eighth grade material because a lot of those kids end up going to Algebra 1 in
Okay.
their eighth grade year. And so I need to make sure that I cover that eighth grade material, that there's no gaps. And so we go from everything from integers, which would be a seventh grade thing, all the way to eighth grade, where we're talking about slope and slope intercept form and graphing and systems of equations and elimination, substitution, all that sort of stuff. So they see a pretty wide gamut of things
Sounds
from
like it.
me.
So, and as far as to become math teacher, obviously there's certain, praxis tests, those kind of things that you've got to go through. Are there any certifications and additional trainings that you had to acquire along the way? And how did you go into those with the expectations versus what it actually was when you went through it? Did it kind of shock you or surprise you, or was it kind of what you expected? Talk a little bit about the things in the path to getting to where you are today in your teaching, and any surprises along that way.
Sure. So certifications changed a lot. I'm one of the old school that was K8 certified, but I was in that George Bush era about being the highly qualified status. So what I had to be able to do is I had to take tests in all those subjects to be highly qualified to be able to teach them. I had to like take a math content test and a social studies. I went ahead and took them all because at the beginning, you're just trying to get your foot in the door and then try to work your way to where you need to go. So I'm technically highly qualified in all content areas. When I went to East, I actually taught language arts. Lord help us all. But that was because of all of that certification that I had.
Yeah.
And then right at the tail end of Obama's first administration, where they did the race to the top money,
Hmm.
what was so great is our director of schools at the time decided to take that money and said, "Is anybody's willing to go get their master's degree? I'm going to pay for half of it."
Oh, wow.
And so my wife and I, both in the teaching field, both in Tullahoma at the time, were like, dude, that's a 2-for-1. Okay, that's a layup. Okay, we're gonna take this because I was looking to get my master's at UTK, and ended up going through MTSU to get my master's. We graduated in 13 now, yeah. And so doing that just to keep my certification, that was in curriculum and instruction. So that
Gotcha.
taught me a little bit of more about the whole overall curriculum and the design of doing things kind of a backwards design approach. But then, throughout my career, I say some of the best learning examples I've had have been to conferences. I've been to the NCTM conference, which is the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. And I'm just telling you, there's some things that you can go there and learn and then turn right back around and go use in your classroom. And I did that in this past November. I went to the AMLE conference, which is kind of a middle school educators conference, and was able to take some of that stuff. It was there at Gaylord, so it's really close to home. This one was, and able to come back and use some things in the classroom. And so I believe honestly that as a teacher, and just my philosophy is that you should be a lifelong learner. Like it doesn't stop just because you have a diploma or a piece of paper. I mean, it could be as simple as going to a YouTube video and learning how to do plumbing because let's see if you can do it yourself before you turn around and call the plumber. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I just believe that is the case. And I guess probably some of that's you're seeing that lived out in my life right now, the things that I'm doing. I believe that learning never ends. And
I agree.
so and it looks a lot different. Learning's not always formally in the classroom either. So
That's true, and I think you just hit something that hits home with me really hard. Is I'm very much one of those that I want to always be learning and growing knowledge, and it's not like you said just in a classroom. I would say I've taken on numerous projects, and we put our own pool in. We've done the plumbing, the electrical. We've done everything. We built our house. I did a lot of the work, and then Mandy and I did a lot of the work together. I wired the house, so but all of that stuff I learned through YouTube, Google, talking to tradesmen that have the experience. I mean, I probably wore out some friends that do that for a living, but I just wanted to be a sponge and like soak it all up. And then I contemplated going back to get a degree, higher education, probably 2 or 3 years ago. And for me, it was kind of one of those things like I've reached a point in my career where it wasn't necessarily going to bring me any monetary advantage, but it was going to cost me obviously. And so I decided to kind of shift gears and I wanted to learn how to fly. And so, I just started taking pilot's lessons and put the same money that I could have gone and sat in a classroom and learned, something that other than, being another tick behind my name, it wasn't going to necessarily gain me anything, but it's still just as equally, I guess, cool or whatever to have a knowledge of, flying a plane, and so I put that money toward that. And now I can go and, fly an aircraft. And so, it's just, I'm very much always wanting a goal and always wanting to go after and chase something because I feel like if I get stagnant and I'm not doing something, I'm not learning, like I feel like I just get complacent and then like I don't like how I feel in that place. I want to always be striving for more and doing more and being better and I don't know, just being the best version of myself I can be. We don't have a lot of time, if you think about it. I get really, I'm turning 40 this year and I never thought I was going to be one of those people that just struggled with the age. I'm always like, beats the alternative. It's, all the sayings around getting older.
yep.
But as I'm getting older, I'm like, I'm getting closer to the end than I am the beginning. And I want to make sure that time is being wisely spent, and one, obviously glorifying God, one, being present for my family, and then making sure that I'm trying to live it kind of to the fullest I can, in all of those Christ honoring, family honoring, those metrics. Because you can have the world, but if you don't live it in those measures, against Christ and against your family and all those things, then what's the point? So
Right. Exactly.
yeah, that's awesome, dude. Um, so
Well,
so
I was going to
yeah, go
say
ahead.
this. I was going to say this, you were saying something about goals. I mean, if you don't set a goal, you're not working toward anything. I mean, that's your goal.
That's exactly right. That's
Nothing.
exactly right.
And so, yeah, we do that within the classroom a lot. We set a lot of goals. I try to set a lot of goals with kids. I think it's important because if you have a goal, you kind of have a purpose.
Yeah. Well, and if you have a goal, you have something to strive for, and then not just having a goal, but having a way to measure it, because you can throw something out there, but if you can't track that progress, it makes it really difficult to kind of know where you are in relation to accomplishing the goal. And so for us, even at the bank, we're very diligent about setting smart goals that are measurable, attainable, that you can reach out there, and they have a time constraint to them, that you have a definitive, this is when we're going to accomplish it. And yeah, to your point, like if you don't set those, then you don't really know what you're shooting for. So
Yeah, agreed. We use smart goals in our class. I use smart goals in the classroom too. So you're saying a lot of the same stuff that I say. So
I
it
understand it,
works.
man. Yeah, it does. It really does. And I mean, we're a 600 plus employee, $5 billion institution, and if it works for that, I think it's probably good for the classroom as well. So
Absolutely.
so one question, one or two more questions about teaching, then we'll move into the next segment. But how would you describe your management style of the classroom? Because I'm sure from time to time it can get interesting. How would you describe your management style?
Let's see here. Well, management style, and I said it kind of earlier, is building relationship with kids
Yeah,
because I don't believe in yelling and all that sort of stuff because, quite frankly, most of these kids probably hear that when they get home. And so I'm just going to be Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 doing that sort of stuff.
yeah,
I have found just over the course, I don't have like a magic thing that I have other than I've got 7 maxims that, because I'm a big Tennessee fan. And so General
go Vols.
Nealon and his that's right, go Vols, and the game day maxim. And I have 7 statements that we live by. And now you asked me to quote them all 7. I probably couldn't remember right now because they're
You're
not
good.
standard for, but like the first one is, okay, everybody in the classroom is worthy of love and respect. So the golden rule is the only way. I talked about that a little earlier. I believe
Yeah, you
that
mentioned
if
that.
everybody is loving and I want them to know that this is a safe place. Number 2, how you arrive at an answer is just as important as what the answer is. It's one thing to be able to get it right, but to be able to explain how to get it right, that's where the learning is. That's more of a math thing. But
Yeah,
things like number 3, failure is inevitable. It's not the fact that you won't fail, you will. It's
will.
how you deal with that failure will determine your future. And then another one that I really love, but the race is long, and in the end, it's with yourself. So make sure that when you're racing that race, you're fighting the good fight. It's with you, and you can't get wrapped up with the people around you because they're running their own race too. It's easy to compare. That's unavoidable. We're going to do that. But at the same time, a lot of the things that we compare really aren't that important at the end. So that's some of the statements like management wise and I send that home with the kids. We talk about it each week. We bring out a new one. And 9 times out of 10, management, I'm like, okay, stop. Stop doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
And 9 times out of 10, they stop. Like I said,
Yeah,
it's not, I believe management can take care of themselves when you build a relationship, you have structure in your classroom. Boring is good. Kids love and thrive structure. They know what to expect. It's not the stuff that's going to get the flashy response on X or Insta or anything like that. But
yeah,
when kids know, okay, we're going to come in here and do this, like I could probably be gone and not have any sub plans. The kids could come in and tell the sub exactly how the layout goes of the day. And when you have some of that stuff, the management takes care of itself a lot of
Right.
times. Now, am I going to have a kid that gets sideways? Yes. Have I had kids that have gotten sideways? Yes. Have I sent a kid to the principal's office? Yes. Has a fight broke out in my room? One time. Okay. So those things will happen. And I think in that management, you've just got to have a level head and be calm, because when you and it's hard to do in the moment. If you match their intensity, just raises the level. So almost like
Yep.
de-escalation techniques
Yeah.
is a lot
Yeah.
of the stuff that we've been taught, learning how to handle that situation. And a lot of times too, I have learned this, to kind of end this little part of the answer. I've learned in 18 years that 9 times out of 10, when the kid acts up, it's really not about you. It wasn't
That's right.
about you. It was something else that was going on. And when you can detach yourself from that behavior and just meet the person where they're at and try to figure out where they're coming from, that usually, like, if I have the behavior, it kind of ends, like, we don't see that anymore. Once they
Yeah.
know I actually care, want to know what's going on. Like, why did you like say that out loud? Why did you say the F bomb? Because it's happened.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, you're talking about kind of that de-escalation, and a lot of times, if you are in that mindset of taking it personal, which I am someone that struggles a lot with taking things personal, and feeling like, I am part of the reason why there's this lashing out, or there's this issue, and even to the point of worrying about what people think. There's a lot of that,
Yes.
and if you're in that mindset, you're going to kind of escalate or get defensive, and then my kid's this way. Like, if you rise to this level, he's going to take it to this level. And it's
Mhm.
just going to keep going. And you'll find yourself, you know, a minute or two later, and it's the roof's blown off. Everybody's, raised voices. And to your point, if you can stay ahead of that and de-escalate it, I mean, we're seeing that play out in the world, even today. I mean, it's not just something that you've got to be able to manage in a classroom, even in your workforce, or in global affairs. De-escalation is a big deal, and it's not something I think that is easy to everyone. It is something that you have to work towards, and remind yourself on a daily basis. Hey, I love what you said. It's not me. It's probably something they're dealing with at home, or it's something that they're battling inner mind that only they know.
Mhm. Yeah, and they don't know how to get that emotion out, and so
Yep.
it comes out as something like that. Now, I will say I'm not perfect. I didn't. I mean, there are days where, I mean, teaching is stressful, and you've had enough.
Yes.
But I've just learned over the course of the 18 years that, conflict resolution's huge. These kids, especially at the adolescence, and I dare say, to me personally, I think middle school is some of the most important, because what the habits that they have now, they're going to carry with them to high school, and it really doesn't change much after that. I tell kids, you don't magically walk into Tullahoma High School and go, "Oh, I've got it all together now." No, that takes the discipline now to be able to do that. So,
20 years from now, when they've been in banking for 20 years, I go ahead and tell them they're not going to have it all together. So there's still, every day we're all learning and growing and evolving. And so, but I do, yeah, to your point, I think that is something really critical. I would say probably from maybe fourth, fifth grade up, even into, the early high school years. They're so impressionable, and they're looking for that approval. They're looking for,
mhm.
whatever it is, and maybe they're not getting it home. And so they are looking to people in their sphere of influence at school. That's why it's so important in that area that you're in right now. I mean, you are someone that can be a role model. You can be a father figure to someone. I didn't have a father growing up. I never knew my dad. There were certain teachers that I looked up to growing
Mhm.
up that were kind of that for me. And so you kind of wear a million different hats depending on the child that you're dealing with and what day they're having.
Exactly. Everybody thinks they can be a teacher, but it's changed a lot, even since COVID.
Yeah,
COVID his I don't think COVID changed the world. I think that there were things that were undercurrent that were happening in people's lives, and in the home. And I think that COVID was more of a catalyst
yeah, I
to
agree.
speed some things up. I think what this generation of kids, it's so much better is talking about their mental health. Growing up, being kind of a millennial, Xennial right there, in
Mhm.
that Gen X millennial phase, we were told we don't talk about emotions. We don't
You're exactly right.
and if you do, there's something wrong with you. Whereas these kids will like, man, I struggle with depression, anxiety, or like they talk about it like it's common. And I
Yeah.
don't think that's a bad thing. I think that so many times we kind of probably put the lid on that,
Mhm.
and they're a little bit more open to talking about those things. And again, I think that, COVID probably was a catalyst of pushing that ahead, that we're more apt to talk about those things now.
Yeah, I agree, and I do think that we have been kind of trained to bottle it up, but the problem is when you bottle it up, when it does come out, it's usually a big explosion of feelings and emotion. Whereas if you can kind of eke those out as you're going through them and navigate them, and then have someone that you trust that can offer you good advice. That's the other thing, is surrounding yourself with people that can provide that great advice. Somebody that can be a role model for you in that instance. I mean, that's a perfect scenario where you've got someone that's sharing what they're really going through and feeling, and
Mhm.
then someone that's listening to that and offering good sound advice on how to deal with that. And so, like you said, not everybody, I don't think, can be a teacher, and I don't think they all know really what goes into the day to day grind. So,
No, they don't. Yeah, we wear many, many, many hats, sir.
one last thing I do want to hit, I think it was your third or fourth maxim, but it was talking about failure. And I just want to hit this because something that I have learned over the years is a lot of time you just need to give them permission to fail. Like a lot of them can be really hard on themselves,
Hmm.
and it's like they think, well, if I fail, everything's going to fall apart. And sometimes it's okay to fail. Like you can learn from those failures and learn from those mistakes. And so, like with Jack, like sometimes we'll sit him down and be like, listen, buddy, we understand you're going to make mistakes. Like that's okay. It's okay to not get this problem right on your homework. But then once we figure out that you didn't get it right, let's talk through how we get it right next time. And so that's the other thing. I love that Maxim talking about failure, and I just wanted to kind of add to it, just making sure they know there's permission to to kind of have those mistakes and those failures and then learn from them. So
When they see me do it in the classroom, I have a piece of corrective tape that I will use quite often. That's named Edward, and it's named Edward from a former student of mine. That when we were during the COVID and we had to do like some stuff remotely, almost like the way we're having this podcast discussion right
yeah.
now, and I was just having an off day, and it was like, he was really nice. Like, Mr. King, wasn't it this? Wasn't it this? I was like, yes, Edward, yes, it was. And then when we finally came back, I bought like 20 of them, and I had him autograph all of them. And so he is going to be a junior this year.
Oh,
And
that's
so
cool.
I always bring out Edward. My kids know about it. And I think that when they see you make the mistake and
Yeah.
you're okay with it, that takes the pressure off of them as well. That's what I found. And they'll tell me that, like, you even make mistakes, Mr. King. So if you make mistakes and you're the teacher, then it's got to be okay for me to make mistake.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I love that. I love the Edward corrective tape. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's move a little bit into, you mentioned we'll kind of tie these together because I know you do serve at church with the music ministry as well. So let's talk a little bit about your faith and music journey, kind of what instruments you play. I think you mentioned guitar. I don't know if there's any other ones you play. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then how you're able to use those talents. I love how you hit on that earlier with giving back and using those those talents and benefits that God has blessed us with, to bless others. So talk a little bit about that journey in faith and music.
Well, sure. I credit everything to my youth minister. Back in college, in that midst of trying to figure out what I was trying to do with my life, because it wasn't going to be computer science. I was playing guitar, had been playing for a couple of years, and just, cowboy chords, what they call them, first position stuff. And he was like, maybe like we're trying to get together like a worship service for the youth on Wednesday nights, and it'd be kind of cool if we had some music and you're here, like you want to try to do that. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's try that. And so I was trying to help out, and because I've deeply cared for my youth minister, Barry Croson. He's now in Unity Baptist Church in Maryville. He's the lead pastor up there.
Awesome.
And I was like, I don't want to disappoint Barry either. So, I started to play, and I'll never forget the first time I ever played in church. They wanted me to play, because I grew up in a Southern Baptist, very traditional worship service. And so no contemporary stuff that I do now, but one of my favorite hymns is I Surrender All.
Oh,
And so they
beautiful
were like,
song.
okay, play this. And so it was, one of those deals where it's like special music, before the preacher gets up and
Yeah.
preaches. And I played it and played a couple of verses, and I'll never forget this. I was getting ready to go off the stage because they were going to pray and then start the service. And then it was God thing. It wasn't me. Like people were
Yeah.
just standing up, cheer, praising and applauding and all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't me. It was God using me. And I
Right.
knew at that moment that I guess, I had a gift to do that musically. And like I said, that was going on in the midst of playing with the youth group there on Wednesday nights. And then there was a dry spell, and we Karen and I married, and we got moved into Tullahoma and trying to figure out what church to go to. And we started going to King's Cross. And I'll never forget, we were sitting in Bible study after the service, and Cal Busman and Andrew Goosh, which were the pastor and the worship leader at the time, came and knocked on the door. They opened it and they stopped everybody, and they go, you play guitar, you play acoustic guitar. I know about you. And I was like, well, I wasn't advertising, wasn't wearing a Gibson or a Martin t-shirt or anything. So, the rest is history. And I started playing there and playing acoustic because we didn't have an acoustic player. And then we had a new worship leader, and he played acoustic, and there really wasn't need for two. So I was like, okay, let's pick up the electric guitar. And
There you go.
7 or 8 guitars later, yeah, it gets to be it can be kind of pricey, but I enjoy doing that. There's something that music does to me that I can't really get anywhere else. And not just like Dave Matthews. I know we talked about Dave earlier, but just being able sitting in front of where I'm at right now, and I've got my monitors, and I use this setup also too to play music through to prepare for worship services. And just when you're in that moment and you're just giving it back to God, the feeling and how your cup just overflows for me.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
so like I said, yeah, electric guitar is what I play primarily now. I would dare say I'm the world's okayest lead guitar player. And I never would have thought in a million years that I'll be playing lead stuff, but that's kind of where I've kind of progressed in this realm. And also too, I do lead worship every once in a while. But my role is primarily as an electric guitar player, just trying to really at the point, just trying to fit in and provide wherever I can, because it's not just about me. There's lots of other people that do this, and trying to find what I can do in my one little segment that first of all backs everybody up in the band, but also number two, that glorifies God the fullest.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think anybody that has played music in church understands where you're coming from. There is something unique about the ministry that you're given when you play music. I've played or sang in church since I was probably, I mean, I would say at least 10, if not. I mean, I've
Yeah.
played piano since I was 5, and I think I started playing probably early teens, and singing in the choir. And like you said, very traditional Baptist church. We kind of had the 2 or 3 choir songs. You had the couple of congregationals, you had the special, and then the
Mm-hmm.
message.
Mm-hmm.
But I would participate in that, and anything from piano to organ. I always envied guitar players though, because you guys could carry your instrument around, and unfortunately it's just not easy for us piano players to move
No, it's
around.
not.
I've got a grand piano that when we built our house, I said, I'm going to have a grand piano, so we built this loft, and I put a 6-foot Yamaha grand piano up there. It's beautiful. It is truly my baby grand. But I had like 5 or 6 guys help me move this thing into the house, and we carried it upstairs. And they were like, if you ever sell this house, don't call us. We're not helping you. But you guys can sit down in a corner of a room somewhere with a guitar and just start picking and singing. And so with me, I did have a keyboard at times, and it was a little easier to transport. But then you had to have a PA system, to be able to plug it into, or you had to have headphones. So I've always felt like that was one thing. I can do the cowboy chords like you're talking about, the GCD, maybe throwing an F minor here and there, but
Yeah.
that's the extent of my strumming. And I'm not the greatest with lead at all. But it is something that I always wish I had spent a little more time learning some of the guitar stuff, like I did the piano, just because I don't know. And even when I was growing up, I looked at guys that could play the guitar, and I'm like, yeah, the girls think they're cool because they can play guitar, and like, you just carry the guitar wherever you want. You can impress whoever
Exactly.
because you can always be carrying
Exactly.
a guitar. So,
Exactly.
but I'm sure you're not just the world's okayest lead. I'm sure you're phenomenal, and I got to hear some of your music
Well,
sometime.
well, I appreciate that. Yeah. Electric's changed a lot. It's not so much a guitar into an amp anymore. Everything that I run is modeling systems now, and that's where most of the world has gone. And so, I have right here in front of me, I've got monitors, and so everything's flat response, so I can hear it right out.
That's cool.
I probably have played through an amp. I actually do have an amp in my classroom. I do that every once in a while when kids score a certain percentage on their test. I do play for them, like
Oh, that's
acoustic. I have
cool.
acoustic that hangs on a wall. I've got a Takamine that hangs on the wall. And then just through the course of some things, I've been gifted some guitars, some like Epiphones and whatnot. And so I will play electric if they score a certain percent. So I've got a tube amp sitting in the room, but I rarely play through a tube amp anymore.
That's awesome. Well, but we always would carry, like, I was in the THS Aristocats, and so we would have the big 88 key keyboard, and then you'd have the Roland, amp with the big 12-inch speaker in it, and so that was kind of, whenever I was playing and transporting things around. And then I had a Yamaha Motif 8, which was at the time, a
Yeah.
really great keyboard. I played that for quite a while, and then just it wasn't getting used. And there's nothing, and you may agree with this with an acoustic guitar, I don't know, but with a piano, there's nothing like sitting down at a grand piano and just playing. And it's
Yeah.
like the reverberations of the strings and everything. It's like you said, just kind of calm your soul. And I can be stressed out, but you put me behind a piano and just start, just chording, or just playing something kind of freestyle, and then a lot of times it'll turn into singing a worship song that is a favorite of mine at the time. Like last night, Mandy was trying to get Jack to bed, and I don't know if you've heard the song "Hard Fought Hallelujah" by Brandon Lake and Jelly Roll, but
Oh, yeah.
it's
Oh, yeah.
it's kind of been
Oh,
playing
yeah.
on repeat. And so I just pulled up the chords to that, and I just started, like, playing the chords, and then just trying to put the music with it, and just that kind of stuff. It gives you a release of stress, and it's like you can just feel it like leave. And for me, the acoustic grand is there's nothing like that. A keyboard can never recreate that just
Oh, no.
acoustic feel. So
Oh, absolutely. I've got a Gibson, a 39 Gibson custom shop that it's with instruments like that, like you said, you feel them. You're talking about the reverberation of
mhm,
the string, being able to play and feel it against you,
yeah,
and have that connectedness with an instrument that
yeah,
I can get that with. Don't get me wrong, I can get that with some of my electric stuff, but just the simplicity and the
hmm,
pureness of an acoustic instrument, and having a good acoustic instrument. Yeah,
yeah.
it does, and nothing beats that.
And I love, worship music does this, obviously, and other musics can do it, but I don't think to the same extent. And obviously there's a whole nother underlaying, of worshiping our creator. But I love the music that moves your soul, and you get
Hmm.
the goosebumps, and you feel it. Man, there's no way of just replacing that feeling. It's phenomenal. And I know when I've done that in service, and I'll play or I'll sing a special or lead, and you feel the congregation, they start to worship, and you see how your ministry is helping others. And to your point, it's not just you; it's everybody that's on that stage, performing and singing with you. But man, there's just something special about being able to minister in that setting, and seeing that ministry play out to where people are then turned to worship and praise. And man, it's incredible.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, as far as singing goes, do you do any singing in church?
Yeah, well, when I have the chance to, I've been on a rotation basis with the worship pastor where I was leading once a month, and so I
Gotcha.
had been doing that quite a bit. Behind, I got to put away all the electric stuff, which was nice because I just brought a guitar case with me because everything else was at church. It was nice,
There you
and
go.
so I do that some. I don't do it as much as I have done in the past, but yeah, I do sing. I don't sing out a ton. I've done that like one time. I think Twin Creeks Marina had something.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so they're like, why don't you just go do that? And I said, okay, for the heck of it, let's just go do this. I've never really do this. This is out of my comfort zone. And they're like, everybody's singing country songs, and I'm like, I just sang Elton John's Rocket Man.
I
Okay,
love
because
it.
that's just
I love it.
that's just where I go somewhere completely different. But I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so I did that, and it was fun or whatever, and maybe every once in a while, but it's nothing like praising God. There's nothing. Sorry, there's nothing that singing for the Lord when you're in true worship, nothing
Yeah.
replaces that. But
Nothing replaces
yeah,
it.
no, man,
I
not at
I
all.
agree with you, man. I agree with you. Well, and I know you worship alongside. I'll bring my mutual friend in here. So you worship alongside Victoria, and she is
Yes,
the person who cuts my hair. And I'm trying to think if that's how I got the tie to Chris King.
yeah,
I think you went to school with my best friend growing up, Andy Neal. So I'm not
oh
sure like
yeah,
how
oh
far
yeah.
our tie goes back, but
Isn't that
one of
funny?
those two is how I was introduced to you. So it's kind of funny. I'll say Victoria probably, but I know you and Andy, especially both being guitar players, had to have known each other
Yes.
growing up in high school too.
We did. Yeah, well, we both graduated in '03. And when you have 56 people,
You were one of
and
the
yeah,
two of the 56.
well, exactly. So, and then Andy's grandparents lived on the opposite side of the road as my grandparents, and they knew one another. And so, yeah, I've known Andy my whole life. And so, yeah, he was a far better guitar player. Yeah, he was. I mean, he was good. Like he's still good, obviously.
He's really
But
good.
uh, but I remember a couple of times where we would just bring our guitars up there after school, or just bring them that day because we had like it was one of those days where we had enough credits, and so one of the classes was like copy or teacher's aid, and just making copies, and we would play guitar every once in a while. And
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, and Vic's my best friend. So
Oh yeah, she said the
yeah,
same thing about you.
yeah, Vic's my best friend, and music and church brought us together. We talk about that, like how in the world did we become best friends? I was like, God, because
Oh yeah.
she was singing. She'd already been singing on the praise team for a long time before I came along, and so we just kind of hit it off, and the rest is history.
You just have those people that you hit it off with, and yeah, to your point, it's a God thing to bring two people together and then be able to worship alongside those individuals. That's what's incredible.
Absolutely,
Is we all come
yes,
from different walks of life, but then God somehow sews us and meshes us together to be able to praise and worship Him in unison. And it's funny you mentioned Andy and growing up, or I guess your grandparents across the street. So like Andy and I growing up, I'm like, we like I said, we were best friends. We went to church together. So I was at his, I'm pretty sure I spent more time at his house than I did at my house, especially during the summer. And so we
yeah.
would go in stretches where, 3 or 4 days at a time, we would be at each other's house. So, I mean, dude, we were probably a mile or two apart, at various times growing up and didn't even know it. So,
Absolutely, yeah, because my grandparents, so our house was, if you went down the hill in
mhm.
Hurricane Creek, that's where I grew up. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, probably we were within a radius of a couple of miles for such a long
it's,
time I didn't even know
it's,
it.
it's crazy, man. Small world. So,
Yes, it is.
well, obviously, music is important. Faith is important. I think that segment definitely highlights, how important it is to you and what it's meant to you. I want to make sure we move into the last segment because this could go on for 3 hours, and I don't want to. I want to be mindful of your time, but I want. One of the biggest reasons I reached out to you about doing this is because you've had a lot of changes over the last few weeks, specifically in regards to your weather channel. And I wanted to talk to you a lot about some of that. And
Sure.
so I want to make sure we spend enough time on that. So, first off, first question out of the gate is, dude, how did you get into weather? Because I have no idea.
Okay, so it started as a kid, like watching the Weather Channel. Like my mom would tell you instead of watching Nickelodeon, I'd watch Locals on the 8. Okay, and growing up where we grew up and having not at the time the cable, the satellite that we have now, you relied off antenna, and being in Lynchburg, Moore County, growing up, most of what we got were the Huntsville channels.
Oh yeah.
And so in Huntsville, about the mid '90s, there was a guy that came on WHNT. His name was Dan Satterfield. He was the
Mhm.
chief meteorologist for the CBS affiliate. And there's something about Dan, the way that most people would not talk about the weather, because it was so scientific. They didn't want to talk above people's heads so that everybody could understand it. But Dan had a way about covering severe weather specifically, that he would talk about, okay, we're going to look at VIL data, and VIL is vertically integrated liquid. And that means we're going to be looking at where hail is in the storm. And he would call numbers. And, at the time it was, not as robust and as, nice graphically interfaced as it is now. But he was the first to really to break in if tornado warnings were happening. Like, I don't really care what's on CBS right now, because most people were watching ABC and NBC in the '90s anyway. And he was like, look, we've got people in our viewing area that are under tornado warnings. We're going to cover that. And so there was just something about his passion that just, like, literally, that man alone is probably the reason why I loved weather. And it's always been back there. It's been through phases where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to college. It's kind of in the background. But then once I'd graduated college, I was teaching, I wanted to get into that role of storm spotting. So anybody can do it through the National Weather Service. You can either do it online or you can go in person, but they have spotter classes where you can go and sit down for a couple hours and they talk to you about the basics. And then there's an advanced one that they do as well. And you can, get trained to be certified in a way. You get your certificate. And then that way, when you report back to the National Weather Service and you put some hashtags on your tweets or your posts, they know that you're a trained spotter, and they know, okay, this guy's been trained, so he knows what he's doing. And
Okay.
so that's where a lot of this, kind of got started early.
So you've actually done some of those. That was going to segue into my next question. So what have you gone through as far as training and stuff? Because I think most of this stuff is kind of amateur based. You started kind of building it from a ground up all on your own.
Yeah.
I'm curious kind of like what certifications you've gone on. And I know you made a recent announcement, and I'll let
Yep.
you share that. But
Sure.
I'm excited for you on that. So yeah, what certifications and what education have you obtained to date? And then also, talk a little bit about the exciting news you released just a week or two ago.
Sure. So as far as like official training, that's where it comes from, as the National Weather Service. So you've got webinars and things you can do for free. Um, or you can go in person. They've done a lot online though recently. They do things called Weather 101s. It's not anything you can get certified in, but the National Weather Service offers all of this 100% free. All you
That's
got to
cool.
do is just have availability. Yeah, it's called Weather 101s. They do it in the fall and the spring, and they cover various topics of severe weather. So they may cover a topic about observations in 3D. So looking not just at the surface is what's happening, but looking up like 850 millibar, 500 millibar, which would be your jet stream, and learning
Mhm.
how all of that affects the weather. And then turn around the next week and they talk about monsoons. And so there's lots of different flavors, lots of different strokes for different folks on that. And as far as like to this point, and everything I've done is just stuff that I've studied on my own, reading
That's
books,
awesome.
reading literature. It just, when you're interested in something, like I said, you never stop learning. And so it kind of got to the point, honestly, in my channel where you start getting some viewership, and then you're in a science community where it kind of does it's important that the people that are giving out that information are kind of credentialed in a way. Like, I get, like, people know what they're talking about, but we do live in a society where every Tom, Dick, and Harry could get on and spout off information, and we can make graphics that look cool and scare the bejesus out of people for
And
no
may not
reason
even
at
be
all.
accurate.
Exactly. And weather anxiety is a thing. It's huge.
Yes.
And so, and that reason, and just because, honestly, I'll just tell you the story. So I'm sitting late at night on the phone in bed, kind of like you, brother. And I'm just like going through some things. Like I looked about 10 years ago, my wife and I looked at like moving to Oklahoma. Like it was a legit thing to go out there. And I would go to OU and Norman, and because they're the severe weather, like that's that's Mecca in a way, really, when it comes to severe weather. And so get my degree through that. And then we started looking at numbers and then the timeline, like, is the juice worth the squeeze financially? Kind of what you were talking about. And I decided at the time that wasn't, we were having kids. That just was not, like, the timing was wrong. And I had been kind of wanting to do this in the back of my mind. Like, what does that look like? You know, Mississippi State has some great things that are online as far as like the broadcast and operational meteorology. And that kind of wasn't where I was going with, because I'm like, am I going to be able to get another degree? And then, like I said, I was flipping through, and then lo and behold, Penn State, of all people, which I don't know if I could root for James Franklin or not. Uh,
Us
being a
Vols fans can't. No.
no, he had a number on us too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were like, okay, so we're going to do something through Penn State where you get your undergraduate certificate. Kind of think of it like you're taking enough classes to get a minor. And so what they do is they give you a certification in weather forecasting. And so starting here in the fall, I'm going back to Penn State. I'm going back to school because I think that the page in a way needs that validity, but more for me, because I want to tell my kids that, look, dreams are never so far out of reach that they're unattainable. And if you want it bad enough and you believe in it enough, you can do it. And so that's some of the reason. But yeah, I'll be going to Penn State, taking some classes. Everything's going to be online, which is cool. But once I'm done, I get the slip of paper from Penn State that says I am certified and degreed in weather forecasting. And so I'm excited about that. A little scared, to be honest with you, teacher going back to school, because online is not my favorite way to learn. I like learning with people in the room. But
Mhm.
I told my wife last week, I'm like, I've never been more excited to go back to school. And I think it's because that passion that goes all the way back to the Weather Channel and all the way back to Dan Satterfield as a little boy, you know, watching the TV going, that is so cool. And so I'm going to be living that out. So it's going to take me as long as I want it to take me. A lot of these classes are asynchronous. So I could get done as little as a year. It could take me 2 years, but right now I'm just going to start with a class, managing a full-time job and all the other hats that we've kind of already talked about on this podcast. I'm kind of a busy man, and I've got to know where to draw the line and create some boundaries. So
Know your limitations. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm going to be starting. And like I said, it's going to bring some validity to the page, but also I think I know a lot, but I'm going to be humbled pretty quick that I probably know very little. And that's okay. That's the whole point of this. And now I'm really going to get to see how all this works. Like, I understand the math and behind it, and can explain to you things about convective allowable potential energy, about area under the curve and all that sort of stuff. But to be able now to actually have all that data, to see the genesis, where that stuff begins, and be able to better accurately see where weather is headed for me, and also
Yeah.
be able to relay that information over to my followers.
That's awesome, man. And I love what you're talking about, having a dream and just showing, your students and the people that hey, you control it. You can do it. And that's awesome.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to have a Penn State flag in my room, which is going to be interesting next to my Tennessee flag, but that's
As
okay.
long as you got the Tennessee one to offset it.
I got Rocky Top. Don't worry.
Well, and what's so funny is you're talking about all these weather things, and I'll share this real quick with you. So when I started flying back in 2023, it was kind of what you were talking about. Like, if it's something that you're passionate about, like you just want to learn everything you can. And Mandy knew something was up, like with flying for me, because I just constantly was watching YouTube videos. Like everything was flying, everything was, I was watching, I did all of my FAA written exam self-taught. So I learned everything I could through YouTube and through online free training that, kind of pieced together. And one thing that I did not realize when you go into flying is how much you have to know about weather. And,
Mhm.
obviously you think, you just go out if the sky's clear, you fly, it's all good. There is so much more to, and I don't know if this won't work for anybody that is listening on the podcast, but it will work for the video on YouTube if I can get it to work. But I'm going to try here to share with you. So this is an app that I'm sure you're familiar with. I don't know if you can see it, but this is called ForeFlight.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, and so ForeFlight is for us pilots, and all those little blue arrows are the airplanes that are ADS-B that are sending signals. So it's all the traffic and everything. And if you zoom in, it'll get more granular. But you can see kind of the movement of weather systems off to the East Coast here. So that this is kind of the stuff that I'm looking at as a pilot. And then when I go in to say Tullahoma, I can click in here and it's going to give me a breakout right here of what the weather is. And it's talking about everything from, wind direction, which matters which direction you're taking off when you're flying, to how high the ceiling is for your clouds, which gives you your, how clear am I of clouds for flying? Can I fly VFR? Do I have to have an instrument rating? And even down into your density altitude, your altimeter setting, your dew point, the temperatures, all that stuff. And like, that's the stuff that whenever I got into flying, I had no idea. And then
Yeah.
I think that exposure to having to learn so much about weather. I would say probably 20% of the questions on the exam were weather related questions where you have to know the types of clouds, the cumulonimbus and, all these different things that produce
Hmm.
rain versus downdrafts. And, I think you even mentioned something about downdraft as a thing you use in one of your things, but having to learn all
Hmm.
that and then starting to follow you, dude, like I'm like hanging on every word you're saying because I'm wanting to know what's going on. So
Yeah. Well, good. Today, nothing's going on. It's kind of boring, which is a good thing.
yeah, we couldn't have done this last
Uh,
night. I think you had some storms that you were tracking in last night. So
yeah,
um,
it's this has been a very active. Just like this year has been way, way active, more than I can remember. Usually there's a dead period of 2 months where you don't really hear that much from me because
yeah,
that's my purpose. Well, I'm not the guy that you need to follow if you want to know what the temperature is outside. I believe that you can ask Siri or ask your phone, and you're going to get that information because it's
yeah,
right there in front of you. What most people want to know is it going to get bad? When is it going to get bad? What types of bad is it going to be? And the last question, which I cannot answer, is it going to come down the street and hit my house? But that's what I found through all of this. That's what people really want to know.
yeah,
Um, and so that's what I try to provide. And so yeah, it's been a very active season. Specifically Tullahoma has not been under a tornado warning this year, in Coffee County at least.
yeah.
But probably 10, 12 minutes down the road, we've had a tornado touchdown in northern Franklin County that went through the Center Grove area and parts of
Mm-hmm.
Vessel Springs and crossed over 41A. And so um, we live in a part of the world that is becoming more active.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could show you the graphic. I don't have it on me, but they looked at where traditional tornado alley is
Yep.
versus where all the confirmed tornado touchdowns. Now, just keep in mind, this is 1 year. We'd have to look at it, scientifically, we have to look it over a long space. But what you are beginning to see, even this year, and if I pulled years previous, is that a lot of these tornado touchdowns are now happening to the east of what we typically call tornado alley. And so we've got that term Dixie Alley. I don't know if you've heard that or not, but
Mm-hmm.
Dixie Alley kind of is the nickname of where you start to see that shift of the new tornado alley in parts of western Tennessee, northern Mississippi, northwest Alabama. And so we're just right there on the cusp of all of that. And so we get severe weather all the time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we'll get severe thunderstorm warnings yesterday. We'll have tornadoes in November that touched down literally about 100 yards from my house in 2016.
Yep.
And then tornado touchdown in December, January, February. It's like it never stops anymore.
And to your point, yeah, that was actually going to be one of my questions: is has Tornado Alley shifted? Because I mean, you're seeing that on even some of the mainstream media, whether they're reporting that what used to be more to our west, it's getting really close to home. That eastern edge is right there, kind of in Middle Tennessee, and
Yes.
extending downwards. So, um,
Absolutely. Well, it's gone to the point now where a lot of meteorologists in the weather world, when we look at data, usually 1953 was when we get most of our like recorded data for the National Weather Service. You can go back previous to that, but a lot of that is like, Uncle Johnny on the porch telling a story, because that's like how the news got reported, back in the 1800s. But
yeah,
now a lot of people are looking at a lot of changes in our climate and our atmosphere. And now we start looking at 1991. So when they look at trends, they don't go all the way back anymore, because now it's kind of like
interesting.
that trend is shifted. Yeah. So 1991 is where a lot of people will start looking at, okay, and start looking at trends with severe weather.
Interesting. So the are you referring to kind of like, I guess, the Farmer's Almanac, to say, that's what always you heard people would refer back if you wanted to know kind of what the weather was going to do on a certain day. You look at the Farmer's Almanac and it would tell you historically what is. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like, it's really not as reliable.
I mean, there are probably parts of it that are, because I'm telling you, some of these farmers, and I'm not going to negate that for science, but like I
Yeah.
know some farmers that know their soil, they know
Hmm.
their area, but our weather forecasting models and our data is getting so good now, especially the last 10 years, to be able to really pinpoint areas. And from the Storm Prediction Center, just on the severe weather front, if you go and look and see where they forecasted, and then turn around and look to see where do the actual events occur from local storm reports, they overlay almost perfectly every time.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to ask, this is a curiosity question. So I assume you've probably seen the movie Twister. I don't know if you've seen
Uh,
the
oh yeah,
have you
we
seen the
got
newest
cows.
one?
Absolutely, I love it. I
Okay.
think it's
It
great.
was a great movie. I've watched it. We came home and we bought the multi-pack that we got both of them together. But so I have to ask, you being who you are and what you do you watch that movie and enjoy it strictly for entertainment, or are you seeing yourself critique like different things that are maybe not accurate, or is it accurate? I'm very curious. Like, is there stuff that
No, I would say I dare. It's kind of funny you say that. So when a buddy and I from school, he's another teacher there at West, we went to go watch the movie Twisters, the second one,
yeah,
and we were at the AMC theater there in Murfreesboro, and they would say something, and I would say, "Well, this means this," and then they would turn around and then explain exactly what that means. And so I'm like, "No, accurately, no. It's even go back to the first one, no." That stuff is, as far as the data is concerned, they tried to keep that really accurate, and that's
interesting.
good, because you've got this whole movement really. And if you go back and look at the second one, spoiler alert, looking at some of those YouTube stars like a Reed Timmer or some of those guys that are kind of active in the community,
Yeah,
they went to him, and said, okay, let's make sure that we're saying and doing the right things, because you've got that whole community of people that would probably crucify you and say this isn't correct, and
if
probably
you,
like
yeah,
hurt you if you hurt that image if you did not portray it as fairly accurate. There's some liberties about the cinematics of everything, but as a whole, yeah, I mean, technically you could have a cow going one way and then the same cow going back the other way. I mean, technically.
the scene at the rodeo where they wind up taking shelter down in the swimming pool, like that was a very intense scene.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, of course, the ending sequence, not to spoil it. I mean, I think most people have already seen it now, but the theater where they're all, and they've got this, what, F5 or bigger, and like it's so climatic. And we had a mutual friend, I think Keith Kinzer, but I think he went and saw it in 4DX, which
Oh,
has
wow.
like all the fans and the water, and like it's spraying you, and like apparently it, and I'm like, that would have been the way to see that
Yeah,
sequence.
exactly.
But
Yeah, that
um,
tornado though at the very end would have been going a lot faster.
that's
Yeah,
kind of what I was wondering.
yeah. I mean, those storms. If you've got like a traditional springtime storm, you've got a supercell tornado on the ground. They're moving at 45, 55 miles an hour. just the storm itself, the sail itself, not the wind speeds in the storm. So they would have had a lot less time to be able to go to those places than they showed. But that's okay. That's the cinematics of it all.
That's right.
So
They took some liberty. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. They did squeeze a lot in that period of time, I will say.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that sequence was over probably a 20-minute period, and you're thinking, yeah, this would have been over.
I think I elbowed my friend and said they'd have been dead by now.
Probably so. That's hilarious. I do, like, I watch those movies and I do wonder at times, what is the accuracy? I mean, Mandy will tell you if we're watching some aviation movie or something that's on like finance or something, I'm over here sitting like, yeah, that's not true. That's not how that works. Or that radio call sign was not accurate, And to your point, I think they try to keep it as close to accurate as possible because, and I think it's super cool. You're talking about how they actually went to these communities that do this and asked a lot of those questions. Some of those have been popping up in my feed recently on Facebook, and I don't know how. I think it's because I spend more time looking at them when they pop up because I find them interesting.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing these people that there was some guy that I think proposed in front of.
Yes, I saw that.
Okay.
I saw that. Yes.
Yeah, in front of this massive like tornado in the background, and I'm like, okay, this is cool stuff. So.
Yeah, they have tour buses. Like they have tornado tours now that you like get on the tour bus and
gosh.
Yeah, it's kind of turning into Nashville Broadway.
Yeah.
I mean
the girl buses.
Right. Well, the purist community is kind of like, okay, we're trying to be out here for the science of it, and you're kind of taking this and making it about a money and an experience. And I get that. But yeah, they do have tour buses that go out there.
I guarantee you there's some waivers signed too, because
you better believe it.
That would be a big risk.
Yeah. And I don't know. And I hope the guy that's driving the bus knows what he's doing, because I'd much rather have some of these other storm chasers that really know what they're doing be behind the wheel.
They got
with
the drills that go down into the ground.
Yeah, that's re-timmer.
Like 2 or 3 tons worth of steel. It's impressive, and you got some serious something to be out there and doing that. But some of the footage that they got, even for the video, I'm assuming was probably authentic.
Yeah,
some of that footage was incredible. So,
yeah,
it's fascinating. So, well, I mean, we could talk weather all night, obviously, and I've listened to you at all hours of the night, so I know you can talk weather at night.
Yes,
but we'll move on to the last section, and I've got about 20 or 30 rapid fires. We'll hit a few of these. They're both in kind of the weather vein as well as the teaching vein.
Okay.
So what I'll do is I'm just going to give you a question. And apparently they've decided to mow outside. So I apologize for anyone listening, or if you can hear it. I've got mowers that are just outside. They mow when we go out to swim in the pool in the evening after work. And I'm like, you guys are picking the worst time to mow our yard. But hopefully we don't have to pause or stop the feed here. I can hear it. It's driving me crazy. So anyway, we'll do some questions. I'll ask you just the quickest answer, yes, no, or whatever the response is, as fast as you can. And we may circle back to a few of these, because I think a few of them may need some additional follow-up.
Okay.
But, we'll go from there. So first one, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go for it.
Okay. What's the funny excuse a student has ever given you for not doing homework?
Funniest excuse? Oh my gosh. Their brother set it on fire.
Okay. There you go. Have you ever had to keep a straight face while secretly dying laughing?
Absolutely. Sometimes every day.
So how many mugs with apples or number one teacher do you own?
Most of those end up in the trash. Sorry.
So
if I kept
as a parent, don't buy mugs with number one.
Most of the time, it's a Starbucks gift card these days, so that's good.
I was gonna say that's what we do. We've done a massage a few times for a couple of Jack's teachers, and then we've done like Starbucks gift cards. So that's the way to a teacher's heart.
Yes.
Do you have a secret classroom voice that your friends and family have never heard?
No, because I talk in Mickey Mouse voice sometimes, and they've heard me do that.
That's hilarious. And your middle schoolers love it?
Oh gosh, yes. They think it's hilarious.
That's
I've got like
awesome.
4 or 5 voices I can try to go into, and they're just like, "What?" If they're not paying attention or they're kind of zoning out, I'll just use a different voice.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm gonna have to remember that if my son's not listening. Let's see here. Have you ever been roasted by a student?
Yes.
Sadly.
Yes. Oh, middle school students, man, they don't care. They straight up tell you the truth.
Yeah, that's the truth. We'll move into some weather ones here, and I don't think any of these we've already covered, but if we have, I may just say we've already answered that. So, let's say what comes first: your love of weather or your obsession with looking at the sky like you're in a disaster movie.
Oh, disaster movie. Because I mean, radar and weather on the air is one thing, but seeing it out there, like it's different, totally different experience. It's that 40X, I guess.
Yeah, as I say, which one would you say is better?
Oh, outside. Yeah, just being able to see it. Yeah.
Cool. On a scale of 1 to I own 3 weather apps, how obsessed would you say you are?
Oh gosh, I own more than 3 weather apps.
I figured you did. I'm
Yeah.
curious how many you have.
Let's see here. Let's see here. Weather-wise, radar scope, radar omega, pivotal weather. Because that's all weather bell. Yeah, I've got like 4 or 5. I don't
Okay.
use them all at once. A lot of times I'll use them and try them out, but radar omega and pivotal weather is what I typically use.
I have 4. So I
Okay.
just checked. I was
Okay.
curious how many I have, and that's counting my 4 flight because I really gravitate to that more now. But
Sure.
I use the Windy app a lot to
Yeah.
kind of know what the wind directions are. And then I always use just the standard Weather Channel app. Like for me, that's what I go to for like the hourly forecast. And then
Yeah.
I had Dark Sky,
Yeah.
but I've not used that one quite as much. But I don't pay for any premiums. I'm sure you pay for some premiums.
Yeah, it kind of like this stuff gets expensive when you get into some of the stuff I do. Yeah, it's not cheap.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to some more. So, have you ever predicted a storm and felt like a total wizard?
Oh man, I call that tornado warning,
You
and
did. I was watching when you did that.
yeah, I had seen it on radar, and honestly, it's nothing against the National Weather Service people. I'm like, why is this not warned yet?
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at it, it is defined. Like I mean, people that like look at that. Oh yeah, I can tell something's going on there.
Yeah.
And so I called that one like probably 5 minutes before they issued that warning. So
That was good. I was sitting there watching and I was like, he got it right.
yep.
So that just gives you another feather in the hat to share.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm calling this weather accurate. So,
That's it. That's it.
um, have you ever yelled at your TV because the meteorologist got it wrong?
No. No. I mean, I can be upset with them that they get it wrong, but not yell at the TV
I got you.
because I say this all the time on my channel. The models are wrong 100% of the time. They're never going to do exactly what you see. And so they're doing the same thing that I do is look at the models. And so they're going off that data. And so yeah, the weather is so variable. And so like
Yeah.
people give these guys a hard time. They don't understand how things can change on a moment's notice that wasn't even thought about. That's why the science and the research needs to continue for these things. The more that we know, the better accurately we can predict things. So
That's a good point. I always say in banking, because people always want to know what the rates are going to do. I'm like, we don't have a crystal ball. And I said, if I had one, I wouldn't be in banking, and maybe I'd be the world's best weatherman. So
exactly. I tell people, hey, is it going to rain? I said, I don't know. I could talk to God on that one. He's the one that's
right.
kind of controlling all this.
See if you get the line of communication going.
Yeah, exactly.
So have you ever canceled plans because the radar just didn't look right?
Yep, I have.
Do you name your weather systems unofficially?
Yes and no. My son, it's funny enough, my son's really been asking about that lately
You should
because,
totally do that. Like,
yeah,
I think it'd be fun.
okay, well, they started, officially they only name, the things in the tropics. And so they
Right.
started doing that. The Weather Channel started doing that with those storm systems, the winter storm systems. So the first one they ever named was Elliot. That's my son's name. And so we got to talking about that. It's like, do they really have names? Technically, no, but that's more like if they name it, now people are like, oh, it's got a name. So they're going to turn in. So it's all about trying to get ratings. So
That's true.
Got to be
But hey,
careful.
you could add a little flair and spice to your I'm going to call this storm system whatever.
We'll
So
have to. You know what the problem is though? There's gonna be somebody that has that name that's gonna be like super ticked off. So like, let's go through my feed. Who's following me? That okay? I can say that name. Okay, nobody's.
yeah. It's kind of like your wife's name. I feel sorry for all the really nice Karens out there in the world,
And she
and
is, and she gets it
she
all the
is one of
time.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
So
like, God, what is she? What did they do to deserve that?
I know. So we got to find a new name to replace the Karen.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so if you had a superhero weather name, what would it be?
Ooh, a superhero. Well, that's gonna play off the Batman. It's got to.
I really tried to sell the Batman
Oh, I
because
saw that.
the spotlight, like it was all
Yeah,
just
so that would be the Weather Batman, and that
I
came
love it.
from a viewer. So what happened was, somebody on a Facebook group had said, "Hey, I hadn't heard from this dude in a while. Like, where's Christopher King Weather at?" And my follower kind of replied back, said, he doesn't do the weather every day. He comes in when it's severe weather. Think of him kind of like Batman. And
I
so
love it.
I never saw the post. It got reported back to me. So that's where
Yeah.
the whole Batman thing came about when the Military Times interviewed me, and
Yeah.
some of my graphics now I kind of play into that. Might as well have a little fun with it, right?
So I actually found that post when I was getting ready for this podcast because I was trying to build a bio on you, and I found that post and it was like, "Where is Christopher King WX at?"
Yeah.
And unfortunately I couldn't click on it because I was at work, and our work has Facebook filtered out, so you can't click on it. And I never dove into it, but I guess it was posted on Telehoma Talk. That's
Yep.
where that's where it was at. So. Let's see here. Do your friends secretly call you to ask if they should pack an umbrella?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I have several that like, is it going to get bad? I get text message all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I can tell you, and I don't mind. It's like, but one of the ways I created that weather, channel, the page, is that everybody can come to that.
See it at once. Yeah,
But also they got direct access to me. So if my mother-in-law, my
that's right.
family, absolutely, they got to know.
Well, we were flying to Asheville several weeks back, and where we were going to, and we were going on a Friday, coming back on a Sunday. Friday was great, and really no issues. You had I think this was right around the time of graduation, so a lot of people were focused on the
Uh-huh.
graduation weather, what's it going to be like, and I was trying to figure out on Sunday because that was the question mark. Could
Oh
we
yeah, I
get
remember
back?
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like I didn't want to fly to Asheville and then be stuck there or stranded. And so we wound up making the call to drive. So we left out on Friday and drove. Took us like 6 hours instead of an hour flight. And then we're driving back on Sunday, and I'm literally in the car staring out the windshield, looking at the sky like we could have flown. Like this is beautiful skies,
Yeah.
everything. But that's to your point. The models are never 100% accurate,
No.
and
And
I'd rather be on the ground wishing I was in the air than in the air wishing I was on the ground. So
well, and I say that a lot. When it's bad, I'm like, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, then that means it's not going to get as bad. The only thing is that people let their guards down, and that's the other thing. And funny enough, you talk about graduation. I won't name names, but administration at Tullahoma High School, I inevitably get an email at the beginning of the week saying, "What's the weather going to be like?" Happens
that's
every
awesome.
year, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm also like, okay, I know why they want to know that, because now it becomes a
Yeah.
deal where we got to start like moving things indoors, and I'm like, well, I don't
Mm-hmm.
make, that's not my decision. I'm just going to tell you what the weather does. Y'all
Yeah.
make that decision.
So my graduation in 2004 got moved in to the gym. And what was so funny, it was either the valedictorian and salutatorian, I'm not sure which one, but they got up to welcome everybody and greet. And the day turned out absolutely beautiful at graduation time. And the person got up and they were like, "Well, it's a beautiful day outside." And here we are all in this hot gym, limited
Mm-hmm.
guests. And so, I mean,
Uh-huh.
I get it, but you do have to make a call, and you got to, like you said, you got to move stuff in, but it's nice to have kind of you in the back pocket to reach out to if they need that inside scoop on what the weather's going to do.
Yeah,
So,
you'd be surprised.
well, we got just a few more here. We'll hit these. Do you have a go-to bad weather voice?
No, I want to be careful about that one, because if you do, that kind of can incite fear. When you see me on, doing live streams, I'm just talking to you the way I am now. So I think that's big. There are other folks in the industry that do have a bad weather voice, and I think that can like rile people up a little bit when you don't need to, because people need a calm voice. And so
Yeah.
I try to be that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that. And I will say your videos when you go live, they're always just kind of, this is the facts and this is what I'm seeing. And I think you're straight to the point, and I appreciate your efforts and trying to keep it level and not, like you said, incite fear or anxiety. So that's awesome. So have you ever tracked a storm just to avoid mowing the lawn?
Well, I have people mow my yard as of recent because we just got busy with so many things, but I may have done that a time or two back in the day.
I mean, you're like, I got to track this storm system. So I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that yard can wait till tomorrow.
That's right. That's right. Do you have a favorite type of storm that you like to watch?
I mean, the stuff that I like to watch, it is it's the typical like tornadic supercell kind of stuff. But more for us, we get that QLCS, that squall line. And so that's kind of where I kind of like watching that weather. The snow is fine. The hurricanes, I watch them, but they don't really affect us like as they would the coast. So I kind of keep up with them more for the rain, but more to that severe weather, squall line, supercell. That's the stuff I watch.
Have you ever made up weather terms to sound smart?
No, because then they'd be so horrible. You would know this dude has no idea what he's talking about.
The funniest example I have of this is Mandy and I, we have a TV in our bathroom, and we used to turn it on the news in the morning. We'd listen, and we'd have it on Channel 5. And there was a girl that was on there. I think her name was Rebecca or something, but she was the traffic person.
Yeah, she's still there. Yeah.
She's still there.
Yeah.
Well, she's the first person I ever heard use the term ponding. And she talked about how there was ponding of water on the interstate, and she's like, "Look out for ponding." And so Mandy and I, to this day, still laugh every time we hear the term because we'd never heard it. In my mind, she's the one that created the ponding term. So
you got to watch out for that ponding, especially on interstates going into Nashville. That's right.
That's right. What would be your weather-related pet peeve?
My weather-related pet peeve. I think that would probably be. I don't know if I have a pet peeve, to be honest with you. I don't really think I do.
Maybe
that sounds like a boring answer, I know, but I don't think I have anything that really irks me. Okay, the pet peeve, yeah, that's true. The people that that ask. Oh, I will say this: maybe not a weather related, but when I do live streams, people can join. Sometimes people will rewind, so they're not with me live, and they'll ask a question I've already answered. And so my son was in here one time because he's interested in this, so I bring him alongside and just say, "Dude, you can't gotta be quiet." And he pointed to the question like, "Are they not listening to you, Daddy?" I was like, awesome. Okay, well, touche, partner. But that would be not necessarily a weather pet peeve, but yeah. Or a lot of these people that have the weather apps and they think they know how to use them. Or, hey, Apple says it's going to snow in 3 days. Well, I call those the crap apps. Okay, there's the reason why those are free.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Never thought of it that way. Let's see here. The last one. If there was one weather law you could put into effect or make, do you have one that you would implement?
Absolutely. This is simple. Every person with a sale of a house, and more specifically a mobile home, because they do this in the state of Alabama, with that sale comes a NOAA weather radio. Because in a battery backup NOAA weather radio, when the tornado came through as the EF0, but it started over in Sharondale, November 29th, 2016. And it went through here. Actually, my old logo that I used for 8 years, was a velocity scan of that tornado as the power goes off at 9:04. That's what it was.
That's cool.
And when the power's out, your cell phones are useless. The towers are out. First responders are probably hitting the tower. And so the only way I knew what was going on, well, two ways. Number one was scanner, and number two was my no weather radio. That was it. And so I think that everybody needs one. I know our phones do it. I get it. When the tornado warning goes off, the EAS alert goes off on our phones, or the WAS or WEA, weather emergency alert, goes off on our phones. I get that. And that's great to have, especially when you're out and about, because you're not going to be lugging no weather radio around everywhere. But just right behind me sits No Weather Radio, a Midland that I've probably had for 15 years. And it does the job every single time. It wakes me up in the middle of the night. I hate it, but that's its job. Because sometimes when the weather hits, you've got to be able to go. And that's the scary thing. I tell everybody, you plan for the absolute worst, but you hope and pray for the best.
Good point. And I'm assuming that's what we hear go off in the background when you're talking in live stream.
Absolutely. If you hear it, you're probably hearing it go off because it sits like right behind me on a dresser, because I'm in a bedroom right now. This is like literally where the setup is. If you you probably saw pictures I posted, but when you have kids and they need those bedrooms, you just find a corner of the world to do forecasting. I don't sit here and have a multi-million-dollar studio. I don't think that's what grew this channel anyway. So anyways, so that's right. It's right behind me, awesome. And it goes off. That's that would be one law that I think that every person, I think that should just be, and especially with the sale of a mobile home, because people do not need to be in mobile homes when we have that kind of weather.
I agree. Well, I got one last funny one, and then we'll move into the last goodbyes and all of the how to find yous. So the last one is going to be, which is worse, getting stuck in a surprise downpour or running out of coffee while you're watching the weather alerts?
Oh, I gotta have my coffee or a Lonnie New. That's what it's become lately.
Yes.
Especially those long nights, and and I'll be honest, sometimes I may go to sleep just like the rest of you guys, because I'm human, but I guarantee you, though, I have all this stuff on ready to go, and then I have literally over on in the bed, I've got a gooseneck that's got a cell phone mount that I can put right above me, so if something were to go, bam, I click it and it's right on. And so cool. Well, it's just little stuff like that how can I still be human and go to sleep and still be able to cover the weather in that specific time? Because we have had some that have gone off, midnight, 1 a.m. Now those I'm typically up, but if it's like a 3 or 4 o'clock, I may be up a little bit, but I've got to catch shut eye too. I've got a 15-month-old at home. I've got to be able to have some energy.
Yeah. You're getting some sleep whenever you can. So,
yes, that's really
on that note. On that note, we'll bring it home in the last thing here. So I like to ask typically at the end of the interview, what is one thing that you would want your kids to remember you by, or the world to remember by? What does Christopher King want the world to know when he's gone? Like, what is something that you want to pass on?
It has nothing to do with my job. It has nothing to do with music, and it has nothing to do with weather, which those are all great. But one day we're all going to be gone from this world, and I'll be in a better place. I don't really want people to stand up and say, well, he was a great teacher. I mean, that's one thing, sure. But I just want my kids to know that I love people. I treat people with kindness, and whatever I do in life, I do it to the fullest. And that's it. Everything else can go to the wayside. Not that it's not important, but those are just little things and hats that I wear. Because really, this is something, James, I thought about. I lost both my parents to cancer. I've lost my father-in-law, and so I've seen a lot of death in my life, probably sooner than I probably should have. what I realize is our legacy, if we're trying to build a name for ourselves, it really only lasts about a generation and a half before you're just another name, you're a tombstone. And that's okay. I'm not trying to build a life beyond my death. I just want to, in this moment, know that I love people and love God. That's what Jesus said. The most important things. If you can't love people and you can't love God, everything else I say, you're not doing it right. You got to start there. And then being able to do things to the fullest. That's what I want my kids to remember me by. That's anybody that's around me. That's what I want them to remember me by.
That's awesome, dude. That's wise words. I
Well, I
think we should
appreciate
all
it.
aspire to that. Well, as we wrap up, I want to make sure people know where to find Chris King, WX. So I want you to take a moment and share the many ways that people can follow you. And I don't think we mentioned it in passing earlier, but I want you to hit it again. The YouTube that you just rolled out, I think there's some limitations with Facebook Live now. And so you're shifting some of your operation over to YouTube. So please share the handles where people can find you on social media as well as YouTube, so they can go and give you a like and a follow and start learning about the local weather from you.
Absolutely. So, if you're trying to follow me on social media, it's going to be at Christopher King Weather. I know a ton of people try to like my personal page, which I'm all about that, but it's Christopher King Weather with WX. That's the call sign for weather. So, Christopher King WX, you'll find me there. You'll find me on Facebook, looking to maybe branch out and go a couple of different directions with the social media to try to connect more people. Also on Facebook, find me the same place at Christopher King Weather. Probably the easiest thing to do right now at the timing of this is probably go to my Facebook page and find it, because YouTube algorithms, because I'm a new thing, I'm going to get buried in a ton of stuff. But my goal is to all my live stream stuff is going to be over on YouTube. That way, it doesn't matter what you have. Everybody has the YouTube app, and I was thinking about it too. You can watch me on TV now instead of having on your tablets and phones, so that way you can really see what's going on. So all my posts and everything are still going to be on Facebook, and as I always do. But the live stream stuff, I'm moving effective yesterday, July 1st. I've moved over to YouTube.
That's awesome. So I will link all of those in the show notes of the podcast. So if you're listening to the podcast, you should be able to go to the show notes at the bottom, and you can click on those there. And I'll put kind of a summary of today's discussion as well. And make sure you go give Chris King a follow on Facebook and YouTube, and hit that bell so you get notified anytime he goes live.
That's
And
important.
if you want to support him, I know you put a call to action out. It's been a few weeks ago that actually helped you kind of improve your setup there. Are you still taking donations? And if so, is that Venmo or is that GoFund? Like, what is the best way if somebody wants to support you?
Absolutely. Well, I've got a GoFundMe, as well as a Venmo and a PayPal. Just depends on whatever is the best. I'm going to probably take that post and then put it up and pin it at the top of my Facebook page, so that way you can definitely reach out, because I had a lot of community support, and I think that's where I feel like everything kind of blew up. I was just saying, "Hey guys, I need my computer equipment's aging. Could y'all help me out?" And I'm not expecting, you know, to pay for everything. I asked for $4,000. I got $5,000. And
That's
so
awesome.
I was able to get a lot of stuff, but there's still a lot of ongoing costs that are associated with paying for the forecast models, paying for the radar. Some of that stuff is a monthly and or yearly subscription. And so I'd be definitely, if you're wanting to do that, I know I've got some plans for some merch, and maybe with some of that merch, some of the sales and proceeds can go to help fund some things as well. So just definitely be on the lookout for that. That's kind of a preview of something coming soon.
That's awesome. Yeah. So if you do want to give, you can go to his Facebook page, and he will have that post that he shared with the GoFundMe link out there. And I'll try to find it as well if I can, and I'll link that in the show notes, because
Sure.
I've got the ability to link that. And then, do you have a Venmo? I know sometimes that goes more directly. There's not a cut that goes to anybody else. They can send it just to you.
Right. Venmo and PayPal go direct. Yeah, GoFundMe takes a percentage off. But if you do Venmo, this is what happened. I literally had so many people reach out so fast that in about an hour's time, 4 fake accounts were made in
Oh
my
my
name.
gosh.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I've got the Venmo. I will send you the link directly. If you just want to reach out, message me on Facebook, and I can
That sounds
do
good.
that for you. And that way there's maybe a security question you may have to holler back at me just to make sure that all the transaction went through. It's not unsafe. It's just what happens. There's bad people in the world doing stupid stuff. And so, but yeah, I've got
That's
that
right.
direct link. So when you click that, it goes to the right one.
Cool. Well, that's awesome, man. We'll get all those linked in the show notes. And I am very excited to get this episode out, Chris. It's been a phenomenal time. I knew it would be so hard to keep this to an hour, even though that was kind of my goal. But dude,
Yeah.
the conversation, we covered a gamut of different things, and it has been just an absolute pleasure to talk to you, to learn about you, and man, I'm just excited for everything that's going on, the blessings God's given you, and the platform that you're taking this. It's just phenomenal to watch, and I'm just thankful to be a pedestrian over here, kind of on the side, watching what all you're doing and just enjoying every minute of it, man. It's awesome to see.
Well, I appreciate that, James. It's an honor. And none of this, like you said, none of this happens. None of this works without God. He's the one that orchestrates everything. I'm just trying to do right by him.
That's awesome, man. You're doing a great job, and I hope you know that. And tell your family thanks for giving an hour and 45 minutes tonight to me. And I look forward to getting to chat with you more in the future.
All right, I appreciate it, James.
Hey, thanks, Chris. If you'd like to follow the On Pace podcast, you can do that. Once again, that's on.pace on Instagram and the On Pace podcast on Facebook. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of the major platforms. Give us a follow, subscribe, help us share. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it, tag us on Facebook or Instagram, and just help us grow the podcast. We can't grow this without your support. And I'm thankful for each and every person that listens. And so I just want to give a special shout out to you if you have listened, and if you share it, I really appreciate it. One last thing I'll mention, Buzzsprout, my host for the podcast, recently added the ability to donate to the podcast. So if you're interested in making a contribution, feel free to do that. You can do that at the bottom of the show notes as well. Or if you are interested in making a donation just individually outside of that, feel free to reach out through direct message, and I'm happy to give you the instructions on how you can do that. Other than that, that's the end of this episode number 30. And until next time, I hope you find your pace and stick to it. Everyone have a great day.